Why does it seem that despite trying to be somewhat financially responsible, despite working hard and getting raises, I would still end up living paycheck to paycheck? This is the reality for 78% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. That includes 47% of those who make over $100,000 a year. There's a ton of things people blame: the government, high inflation, your greedy employer. But I still believe that it is absolutely possible to build wealth in America as long as you avoid doing what most people do. So these are 12 very common middle-class money habits that if you can stop doing will drastically improve your finances. Having a car payment. This is something that a lot of people don't think is wrong, especially when you're living paycheck to paycheck. It's really hard to save up enough money to actually pay cash for a car. And therefore, especially if you can get good loan terms, a lot of people think it's fine just to, have a car payment pretty much indefinitely. And the average car payment in 2024 was $532. That's about 14% of the average person's take-home pay. Now I want you to think for a minute how different your finances could be in a year or 5 years or 10 years if you invested $500 a month into your future, into the stock market, into anything. Instead, what I do personally and what I recommend is, extreme frugal living in order to save up enough money that you can pay for a very cheap car in cash. My first car was like a $3,000 Honda Civic. My second car was like an $11,000 Honda CR-V. And both of these got me from point A to point B without ever having monthly payments on those cars. And they were reliable, cheap, easy to fix. And honestly, I think if I had bought a new car at the beginning, I wouldn't have the financial freedom that I have today. It will drastically change your financial future. Spend more than you earn. This one really seems like common sense until you look at some statistics. Like the average household has almost $8,000 worth of credit card debt. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-credit card. I actually have a couple of them. It got me and my family, free flights to Europe. They are great when used correctly. But if you are one of the large percent of people who carries a balance on their credit card at an average of like 28% interest, then this is literally just draining money from you like faster than the government. Somehow almost 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but I find it extremely unlikely that all, 78% of those just happen to be earning the exact amount of money that they spend every month. At some point, you have to do what I did and take some very drastic measures and decide that some things are just not necessary. Decipher the difference between needs and wants so that you can get your finances in order and lower that huge stressor in your life. If you have to go extreme, that's sitting down, writing a budget, doing the cash envelope system if you have to. I'm currently experimenting with digital cash envelopes from this company called Cube. It's not a sponsor, but I'll leave a link down below. And it's just a really cool idea to force myself to stay within my budget, because in today's world, it is so easy to overspend. Spend selfishly. This is sadly a very common habit, something that I used to do. And the average American only gives about 2 to 3% of their money to philanthropy, and only about half of Americans give anything at all. And I don't think that's because, Americans are inherently selfish, but most people feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck and they just don't have anything extra. And I used to have that mindset as well. But then about 5 years ago, I started to give away at least 10% of my income, even when I wasn't making a lot of money. I literally put this into my budget like rent, like anything else, that off the top, before anything happens, I'm giving 10% of it away. Personally, I tied that or to people that I know personally who are in need. Once I started doing that, I had this little bit of a mindset shift for me, because I realized how incredibly blessed I am. And I shouldn't just be, spending on myself, but I should really be trying to give back. Because even when you don't have a lot, you still probably have like a hot shower and like basic necessities like that have never been experienced through all of history. And yet we take those things for granted. And I realized that I don't need a lot of stuff to be happy, and I don't want to just focus on myself. But when you have this focus towards others and helping others, it made me work more, helped me want to earn more, made me feel better about myself. So if you're not tithing or at least giving some percent of your money away, I would highly recommend it. Even from a selfish point of view, it'll make you feel better. Buy, don't consume. This is a very common habit. Buy a Coke or buy shares of Coca-Cola. This feels like super, finance bro type advice, but it's a really cool concept that most people don't do. Most people just have this consumer mindset, and everything that they spend money on is just a deduction in their net worth. But if you can shift to this idea that I want to buy things that increase my net worth, I want to buy assets. For me, it's like a much more fun and exciting way to live my life. Instead of just having crap that's going to go down in value every single year, I want to buy things that will go up in value every single year. It's like this old hoarder mentality that I used to have. I'm just applying that to buying more real estate, to buying more stocks, buying more things that will help me be able to buy more things My lights are going crazy. So apply this filter every time you spend money. Realize that this couch, this phone, this pair of shoes, all of this is just gonna deduct from my net worth and go down in value. And how can you shift that to things that are gonna go up in value and increase your net worth, and in return, literally buy yourself freedom instead of giving your freedom away? Because we trade our time for money, and that money can then be traded for freedom, or it can be pretty much given away for stuff, in which case you have to trade more of your life for it. So literally, like, you're giving your life away to these companies instead of buying some of that back.
And there are just so many options when it comes to buying assets. A lot of high net worth people do things like real estate, private equity, or even luxury assets like fine art. And the cool thing is, even if we're not making, millions of dollars or tons of money, we can actually make buying diversified assets part of our own journey, thanks to today's sponsor, Masterworks. Masterworks' art investing platform has distributed back a total of $55 million in investor proceeds across their 22 different exits. So Masterworks' art investing platform actually offers blue chip paintings to investors in like the form of shares. And that way you can invest into multiple different artworks while controlling the amount that you invest. I put a link down below to the SEC page with a link to all their offering circulars located on the Edgar database on the sec.gov, but even just looking at their website is impressive. Some of Masterworks' previous offerings included legendary painters like Basquiat, Picasso, and Banksy, and they're nearing $1 billion in invested capital. With over 900,000 members, shares of some of Masterworks' previous paintings have sold out in minutes, but you can just use my link in the description and you can actually skip the waitlist and start investing today, or you can go to masterworks.art/GabeBolt. Now, of course, as with any investment, past sales and previous offering demand are not indicative to future results. And of course, investing does involve risk. Make sure that you check out some important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.com/CD. I personally really like it, so check out the link.
Drink alcohol. I know this one is probably going to get some pushback, but this doesn't even just apply to drinking alcohol. When I used to drink more, the next morning I would feel sluggish, unmotivated. I would just be like recovering a little bit. Even when I was drinking, after one or two, the negatives way outweighed the positives. I was less productive, less motivated, and it's also expensive, especially if you drink out. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a few drinks occasionally, but if you are stressed about your finances, if you're not where you want to be, and you're looking for different escapes, whether it's alcohol, social media, drugs, TV shows, random things that we use to escape the present moment, if you're looking to that instead of facing the problem that you do have, which is not earning enough, spending too much, bad impulse control, whatever your problem is, then taking responsibility from that instead of hiding from it can be a really big change. Now, I realize this isn't the case for everybody who drinks or whatever, but a lot of times we'll have a habit that we will use instead of actually facing our problems. And once we can address that, we can use that same time or mental energy or whatever to actually improve our finances versus hurting our lives. Increasing spending after a raise. This is what most of us know as lifestyle inflation, and let me tell you, it's real. I've had this happen to me over the past couple of years as I went from earning, $10 an hour as an office cleaner to actually, to make some decent money. And each time I get a raise or I get a better paying job, I would feel this pull to spend more money. And sometimes I definitely did it. And you know what? I've never had an experience where spending a lot more money has made me any happier. And this is the common trap of why people even earning $100,000 a year plus are still living paycheck to paycheck. It's because as soon as they get a raise, they get a new car. As soon as they get a raise, they get a better house. As soon as they get a raise, they book an extra vacation. They do a bunch of things which in and of themselves are not bad, but they do them at the expense of their financial future and actually having less financial stress in their lives. So when you do get that raise, I like to just pretend that I didn't. I take that money and I put it into the stock market or a high interest savings account, and I just pretend that it didn't exist. And then eventually I'm able to use that money to buy myself a little bit of freedom instead of just, more crap. Buying the wrong discounts. This used to be a problem for me. When I would go to a store and I saw something 30% off, 50% off, 70% off, I would buy that thing just because it was on sale. That was like a good reason to buy something. Turns out that's dumb. Instead, I do the same thing now, but I look in the overall market. I have this general philosophy that everything popular is wrong. So when stocks go down, I buy more stocks. When real estate prices go down, I buy more real estate. When they go up, I generally wait. Obviously, this is easier said than done, but when you just assume that whatever is happening, you should kind of do the opposite of. When a stock is going crazy high, you shouldn't try to jump on board. You should wait until it falls off a cliff and then try. It makes things a lot easier. If you look at all the market crashes that has happened in history, A lot of people panicked and lost everything, and a lot of other people bought and made generational wealth. So don't buy discounted crap, buy discounted assets. Believe that the system is rigged. There again, yeah. I've been hearing this a lot recently, and honestly, it seems partially justified. I mean, if you look at like home prices compared to wages, they have not been going up the same. This makes the idea of owning a home the conventional way extremely hard, especially for young people. But I think this is where things can get really out of hand. You can get depressed, anxious, and that is just trying to control things that you cannot control. We don't know what things are gonna look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now. We don't really have a lot of control over what happens with inflation or the government, but we can control a lot of things. We can control our work ethic, our bad habits, what we do with our money. One way to fight against, the big corporations is not supporting them, but buying a bunch of stuff and just being an endless consumer of things and just taking extreme accountability over your life. Like when something goes wrong in my life, I just assume that it was something that I did. It was a dumb mistake that I made. It was because I was in the wrong situation. And doing that, while giving me a lot more responsibility, also gives me a lot more power, because instead of blaming the government or the job or the political corruptness or COVID or whatever, I can look at myself and see what changes I can make to take control back over my life. Because in the end, if I get fired from a job, it was my choice to take a job there. Nobody forced me, and yes, it sucks, but I can either take control or let it ruin me. Listen to your friends. I generally have a rule that I will not take financial advice from anybody that I wouldn't want to be where they are financially. So if your friends or your parents or your uncle or whatever gives you financial advice and they are not doing well financially, generally it's good to ignore that. When I started hanging out with people who were making literally 10 times more than me, I realized that what I thought was doing good was like nothing compared to what these other people were doing. Just hanging around with these people within a couple of years really boosted my income. It boosted the opportunities I looked for, shifted my mindset from a scarcity type of mindset to more of an abundance mindset of thinking that, maybe I can earn more than $100,000 a year. Maybe I can earn more than 200 or 500, then a million. And, I'm not at those numbers yet, but I used to never think I was really worth anything. And then I realized that all these people who make, 2 to 5 to 10 times more than you, they're not better people than you. They're not smarter than you. They're just doing something differently than you. And if you can hang out with those people, it will literally make you more money, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. It's just, if you hang around with people who are not motivated, who are not trying to improve their life or their finances, same thing's gonna happen to you. If you hang around with people who are excited, who want to improve the world, who want to improve their finances, who want to get things together, buy financial freedom, you're gonna want to join in. So pick your friends and who you listen to wisely. That's actually something I talk about in my newsletter. If you guys haven't checked that out, there's a link down below. It's free. I just kind of give some thoughts and ideas that I've been learning, kind of like what I share in these videos, but in there. So if you want to join, it's down below. If you enjoyed this video, you will love this video right here. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.